Hey there, beautiful people. It's Dina, bringing another daily dose. Yesterday, I shared a message about how to be your own best friend. The title of the message was, do you like being with the person that you spend the most amount of time with? I go into explaining a little bit about my journey from going from a place of really not liking who I am and God really transforming that so that I could really learn to see myself the way He sees me, and then learn to love myself, and then actually really learn to like being with myself, because honestly, we're the person that we're going to spend the most amount of time with over our spouse and our kids. So we have to really learn to like being with the person that we are. And it took me a lot of years to be able to get to that point. So this is a part 2 of that message. When we are not operating in that true God-given identity, learning how to see ourselves the way God sees us, then we are leaving an open door for the enemy to determine what our identity is. It's the world that determines our identity, and the enemy operates within that realm, and he comes in and starts to plant lies in your head that you're not a good mom, or you're not a good wife, or you're not lovable, or nobody wants to be with you. And also, if you're not managing yourself and you're not taking care of yourself, and part of taking care of ourselves, honestly, is spending that quality time alone with God, getting away with God so He can actually show you who you are and who He is for you. That's the first step. But if we're not taking care of ourselves in the physical and the emotional, then we leave that open door for the enemy. So what I see in this world of special needs journeys, moms that are walking through extreme situations, honestly, I see a lot of very exhausted, burnt out, stressed out moms. I see it all the time on social media. There are quite a few moms out there that are actually speaking hope and truth, but I see more moms promoting their exhaustion and their frustration and not knowing what to do and wanting to give up. And that's a big part of why I chose to do what I'm doing now, is because if I can share my story and it helps one person know that there is life on the other side of that, even though your situation doesn't change, you can absolutely thrive in all areas of your life, then it's worth whatever I have to do to put the time and the effort into this. But going back to what I was saying about the next phase of really learning to like yourself and being in enjoyment, just spending time with yourself, you can be a better mom. So when I was not operating in my true God-given identity and I didn't know who I was, I let my circumstances determine who I was. I let my emotions and my mood and all of that determine who I was. Honestly, I let my mistakes determine who I was. I felt like a failure in every area of my life, even though on the outside, most people would think that I was doing okay. I was running a very large youth outreach. We were very successful. From the outside looking in, people thought that our marriage was really good and thriving. Our kids were thriving. There was so much behind the scenes that people didn't know that we had to hide behind this mask, or that I was hiding. So I felt like a failure. And also, I felt like I was a fraud. I felt like I was being hypocritical. I'm saying one thing, but yet I'm not actually living that out in my own life. I lived in deep depression and despair while I was trying to encourage other people, to live their best life. So I always felt like, that imposter syndrome or that fraud that was, not actually living out what I believed. So that was a journey that God had to take me on. But when I was operating in that old self, it affected my children. It affected my husband. It affected the atmosphere in the home. So if you're only living in survival mode, this is the message I need for you to understand. If you're a mom on the other end of this video and you're watching this, if you are operating from a place of despair, from a place of being burnt out and frustrated all the time, you could barely get through the day. And how you could determine that is what comes out of your mouth. When your kid comes up to you to talk to you, are you yelling at them? Are you wishing that they would go away? I did that a lot of times. Honestly, I still do that with 𝗁cie. It depends on the day. It depends on how busy I am. If she comes up to me, sometimes it might be say, what do you need? I'm busy. Sometimes she just wants to say, I love you. And then I feel like this incredible mom guilt because I snapped at her and all she was trying to do is say, Mom, I love you, or give me a card or a picture or something that she was drawing. But I wasn't managing my day. I wasn't managing my emotions. I wasn't making room for her. So as a mom, are we making room for our kids to show up in our lives? Are we just trying to keep them alive? Are we just trying to survive the day? Are we just trying to get to the end of the day? And our best part of the day is, thank God I get to go to sleep again. I spent a lot of years doing that. And then before you know it, weeks go by, months go by, and now your kids are adults and they're living outside of your house. And now they're struggling with managing emotions. They're struggling with their own anxiety and even suicidal thoughts because I couldn't manage my own health. I didn't even know that I wasn't managing. Honestly, there was such a blind spot because when we aren't in a place of being self-aware, we don't realize how we are impacting other people. I don't think you could have told me that I was doing the things that I was doing. I really thought I was doing the best I could. I really thought I was being a good mom and a good wife and a good youth leader and a good friend, a good person. I really did feel that way. And maybe for the most part, I was being that, but I spent a lot of time not operating in who God says I was. And so I let my circumstances get the best of me, and then that got the best of my children. I don't know if my children actually watch this, but we spent a lot of time in inner healing and breaking off those things that happened in childhood. Now, I have great kids. Honestly, they are all thriving in their lives, even though they do wrestle with those emotional things, because my husband and I didn't actually care for them the way we thought we were. Sometimes as parents, we spend so much time trying to put a roof over their head and trying to make sure that they're clothed and that they, have activities and all this stuff. But we never think about, are we managing their emotional health? Are we managing their spiritual health? Are we showing them how to find God? Are we showing them and pointing them to God so that ultimately when their life gets hard, that's who they're going to? All my kids come to us. Like, honestly, I'm so grateful, even my adult children, that they want to spend time with us, and we really enjoy spending time with them. And we will talk for hours on the phone. And so I'm grateful that God was able to heal stuff. And even if there was a fracture in the relationship, that God can always make something new. He always brings beauty for ashes, especially if you're pressing into Him and you're asking for Him to forgive you, and you're asking for Him to transform you into somebody better. A better wife, a better mom, a better friend, a better human being, as I always say. I wanted to be a better human being, and the byproduct of being a better human being is everything else flows from that. But in my mom journey, I did not spend enough time managing my children's emotions. And I don't even want to say managing, but teaching them how to manage their emotions, teaching them how to go to God when they're really hurting and when they're really struggling. I spent so much time trying to, work on their behavior that I didn't care for their heart that much. And that was because I wasn't caring for my heart. I wasn't taking care of my heart. And when you don't take care of your heart, you can't help anybody else. You can only give out of what you have. And I would say most moms are giving out of an empty vessel. They're depleted. They're giving their family the less than depleted, burnt out, frustrated version of themselves. We have an obligation to show up to life the very best that we can. And that's not some sort of prideful, arrogant thing. It is something that is a necessity. If you want to have a thriving family and kids that can grow up to be parents someday and thrive in their lives, then we have to show up and give them the best of us. And we can't do that until we heal. So everything that I teach on my channel, in my books, my writing, all of that is about teaching you how to heal from your own inner wounds, your own childhood trauma that you had to go through, your own rejection, learning how to see yourself the way God sees you, partnering with God in your relationship with your spouse, and partnering with God in your relationship with your children, and allowing Holy Spirit to be the one that transforms you and helps you to walk those roles. You can't do this without them. I'm sure there's a lot of people that say you can, but what are the consequences of that? What are the casualties of you not walking with Holy Spirit and raising your children? Maybe people don't actually see all the consequences of that because their children don't come back to them and tell them what's going on. Maybe their children are struggling with, toxic relationships and financial issues and identity issues because we didn't take care of ourselves, and so that we could give them the best of ourselves. And I've used this example before. If you take a vessel and you're pouring into that vessel to the point where it is overflowing out of the top, then everything else around it is going to be filled up from the overflow. If you don't have anything in that vessel, it can't fill up anything around it. So our job is not to fill up the people around us. Our job is to fill up ourselves. And out of that, then all of our family's needs will be met. Then your children's emotional, spiritual, physical, mental well-being will be met because your needs are being met. You're pressing into God. You're filling yourself up. You're being your best friend. You're learning to love yourself. And then out of that, you could teach others to do that. Out of that, then your family thrives, your marriage thrives. And I still absolutely believe you can thrive even if your situation around you is not looking like that. I believe that we actually do partner with God even in the most difficult situations. And the world might say, how could you do that? Because I know who I am. Because I know whose I am as the daughter of the King. Because I walk in my God-given authority and I take authority over the enemy that wants to kill, steal, and destroy my family. That's how I know that you can thrive. You can actually live your best life even though the things around you are not necessarily looking like that. But then eventually I do believe that they will come into alignment. The more you work on yourself, the more you work on your relationship with God, the more those things will come into alignment. Because God's children, if you are a Christ follower, you are God's child, He wants us to thrive. He wants us to live life abundantly. Jesus did not pay the price he did for all of us so we could just suffer through life. We don't honor God by doing that. We honor God by showing up as our best self, by honoring the grace and mercy that he shows us. So I hope this encourages you. If you're one of those moms that's living in that state of just depleted frustration and giving, out of an empty vessel, stop and take time to start pouring into yourself. I don't know what that looks like for you. For me, it was time alone, worship music, journaling was a really big thing for me, pouring into myself with positive messages, sermons, even getting away with a friend that can encourage you, whatever you have to do, whatever your thing is, exercising, sometimes going to the gym will, get those endorphins running, whatever it is that you have to do to fill your bucket. And it's not a once and done thing. It's a constant thing because it's constantly being taken out of you. So you've got to keep putting it in. There's got to be a constant source. And I found for myself the only constant source, the never-ending source of goodness in my life is God. So even when I'm not doing the other things, if I'm not eating well and sleeping well and exercising and spending quality time with other people, God is always being poured into me because I make sure that that's my first priority. And then out of that, then I can actually show up for my family. So anyway, I love you. Remember that the creator of the universe loves you. He wants you to thrive in your life. He created you for a purpose. He created you to enjoy life abundantly on this planet, not just in eternity. I just want you to remember that. You're loved. And, I can't wait for us to come back together again. Have an awesome day.